Mack Hansen has got himself a ban, folks. He's still going to be available for Ireland at the Six Nations, but he has been banned for his smack talking about the referees in Connacht's recent loss to Leinster. We'll go through the ban. We'll go through what he's said since the ban has come out and how does it compare to some of the other kind of recent bans, because I'll admit it doesn't feel quite in line with what you would expect punishment to be, given that the outcomes in some other events seem a lot worse. But we'll go through it and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how fair or not you think this ban is. If you missed it, Hansen in the post-match press conference after Connacht's loss to Leinster basically said that some of the calls were BS and that they never get any of the calls and that it felt like they were playing against 16 men. The conference is still available online if you want to see his rant. But clearly he was pretty emotional, pretty heat of the moment stuff. Because it felt like a fan. It felt like a post-match press conference being taken over by a Facebook comment section. If you ever read the Facebook comment section of basically any team that has lost, you will find people saying, the ref never gave us any calls. And I watched the game that Hansen's talking about, and Connacht certainly got some of the calls. I'm not saying they had preferential treatment in their regard. I'm not saying the refereeing was great, but it certainly wasn't like Leinster got every single 50-50. The URC's refereeing at times does leave a bit to be desired. And he may be right that Connacht sometimes don't get the rub of the green, but that's just rugby. You're never going to get all the 50-50s. That is the kind of nature of 50-50s. And as a biased party, if you're a fan of that team, if you're a player of that team, you're obviously going to focus on the ones that don't go your way. But as I said, he was pretty upset and he lashed out at the ref. He said those comments. He's had his hearing, and they've initially banned him. Well, basically the entry point, I think, was 6 weeks. But because he's been made to apologise, and he's going to have an appropriate course related to match officiating to attend. So not quite tackle school, but refereeing school, officiating school. That ban is down to 3, which is good news for Ireland because he's still going to be available for the Six Nations. But it is still a ban. Post-ban, he said he let the emotions get the better of him, and upon reflections, his comments to the media were ill-advised. Well, no shit, Mac. He fell far short of the standards he expected of himself and what the sport expects of the players. So, at the time, a lot of people regarded this as a breath of fresh air because people get frustrated at refs, but as I said, it felt a bit Facebook comment section-y for me. It's one thing to say the refereeing was rubbish. It's another thing to say that the referee was biased, basically. So I think he should get a ban, for sure. However, given that there's been some other recent bans, I think it's worth comparing them to see where these comments kind of fit in the scheme of things. Hugh Tizard in the Premiership for Saracens recently put in a pretty nasty clean out on Sammy Arnold into his leg. Arnold is out for 6 months because it was a pretty nasty shot. Tizard gets a 12-week ban, which is reduced to 6 because he kind of pled guilty and showed remorse and all that stuff. So 6-week ban. So double what Mac is getting, but he's put a guy out of the game for 6 months with a long, long injury layoff. Tom O'Toole, kind of also fresh news in Ireland with a pretty clumsy clean out on Alex Nankivell, who also is going to miss an extended period with injury. He got, I think it was a 10-week ban reduced to 6, so he is going to miss some of the Six Nations. His didn't seem as bad as Tizard's one if you've seen the footage. It felt clumsy, but Alex Nankivell does come away from it injured, surely. And then Tolu Latu, who's got a horrendous record for disciplinary issues for La Rochelle in their recent game against Toulouse, which is another game I watched. He got only a yellow card at the time for a clean out on Daroc, the young Toulouse number 9. He got a 4-week ban, which was elevated to 5 because he's got a bad record, but then was reduced by 2 weeks because of his guilty plea and his remorse and whatnot. So he got a 3-week ban, which just happens to be the same as Mack Hansen's ban. So it doesn't quite feel balanced. I know you need to protect the refs. And as I said, I don't really want every post-match press conference becoming like a Facebook comment section where the players just bitch and moan about how they didn't get the calls. Because as I said, not getting the calls is part of the game. You go into rugby knowing that sometimes you're not going to get the calls because there's legit ones that can go either way depending on which position you're standing on, which angle you're looking at. So I get that he gets a ban, but when you got guys going out for 6 months or long-term injuries or potentially career-ending injuries, getting similar bans to an outburst in a post-match press conference, it doesn't feel balanced. I feel like either the injury bans, if they are looking after player safety, need to be a lot higher, or this ban could have potentially been a little bit lighter. A week or two maybe would have felt a bit more right. But as I said, I do support the ban because, as I said, I don't like the idea that these players just start bitching and moaning about the ref. It's not a good look. You look really sore losery. You look that way as a fan as well when you go into it. If you're just taking 80 minutes of a game and reducing it down to a couple of referee calls, you know what I mean? But, yeah, a ban which is in similar scale to some very potentially dangerous injuries doesn't quite sit right. So I get why there's a lot of people who are also unhappy with the ban. But you guys let me know your thoughts. What do you think about Hansen's ban? It's a couple of Challenge Cup games and I think one URC game he's going to miss. So he may not have played in all of those games anyway as Connacht kind of rotate their players. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts on the ban. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Take care of yourselves and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.